morning that Halyna Hutchins was shot and killed, tensions among the crew and cast regarding safety on the Rust set had boiled over. The crew had warned the production that the set was super unsafe and that safety was a massive issue.
After the warning of the unsafe production, the workers that had complained quit in protest of the safety conditions. The producers directed the super unsafe production to continue. This is the story of what happened. Mr. Baldwin and the Rust crew and cast committed major breaches of industry safety protocols. Mr. Baldwin and his production crew were performing a lineup. A lineup is used to confirm where to locate and angle the camera. Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin to use a replica or rubber prop gun whenever possible. It was unnecessary for Mr. Baldwin to use a revolver for the lineup. Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin, as a producer and lead actor, to accept the revolver directly from or in the presence of the production's armorer. Mr. Baldwin did not accept the revolver from the armorer. The armorer was not even in the same room. Mr. Baldwin allowed Mr. Halls, the first assistant director, to confirm for him the deadly weapon was safe. Mr. Halls was not qualified in weapons and safety. Mr. Halls did not look at every round in the revolver's cylinder. Industry standards require that Mr. Baldwin personally perform or observe a visual inspection of the revolver to confirm it contained no live rounds. Industry standards require Mr. Baldwin to be trained and qualified in safe handling and proper firing procedures before accepting the revolver. Mr. Baldwin refused weapons training on how to perform a crossfire, the type of gun draw he was about to perform in the church. The first rule for safety with firearms on a production set required Mr. Baldwin to treat all firearms as if they were loaded and refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone. The industry standard required Mr. Baldwin to remember that any person or object at which he points a firearm could be destroyed. Mr. Baldwin aimed the revolver at his cast and crew within a dangerous distance. The cast and crew were only 4 feet away from Mr. Baldwin's weapon. Industry standards required Mr. Baldwin to ensure any crew in the line of fire had protective glass or other personal protective equipment. Industry standards required remote operation of the camera if Mr. Baldwin ever aimed the gun at the camera. shake a dummy round, you hear a BB rattle. When you shake a live bullet, you do not hear anything.
So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I listen to you, says, "We'll just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that." And I cock the gun. Can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and I let go of the hammer, the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer, the gun goes off.
There's definitely two deliberate acts that were required there. He had to cock the gun and he had to press the trigger. If he had his finger on the trigger, if he had his finger on the trigger here and he's pressing it, he may not be aware that he's pressed the trigger. Then he pulls the hammer back, and then he releases it, and then the gun fires.
Okay, that's a rendition of the facts that we've discovered to date. By filing a lawsuit now, we can use the court processes to serve subpoenas, take depositions, and obtain more records to further complete this investigation and hold the people accountable who are responsible. So with that, we'll open it up to some questions. Okay, no questions?
No.
Is there one bit of evidence that you consider to be the most damning?
You know, I think it's all a culmination of all the evidence together. The totality of it is just so overwhelming.
What about the resignation emails from those camera operators before?
That again shows the unsafe condition, the cost cutting, which we've alleged in the complaint, I think is pretty evident for this to happen.
How does the criminal investigation play into this? Do you think that some of this behavior rises to a criminal level?
Well, first of all, the Santa Fe County District Attorney is in charge of that, as is the sheriff. We have told them that we will fully cooperate. We are letting them conduct independently, as they should, their own investigation, and we await for the results. Clearly, they have access to more evidence than we do. They have the weapon. They have the evidence that was at the scene, and at the appropriate time, we'll be allowed to inspect that. But we intend this case to be kind of on a parallel track, to be moving forward with certain areas of discovery and to continue moving forward. And when the county makes their decision, the district attorney will continue moving forward.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. Had Halyna expressed any concerns prior to the accident about the production or safety issues and maybe the level of budget, things like that?
Yeah, I couldn't hear the first part. I'm sorry.
Had Halyna expressed any concerns already to her family, perhaps, or others about the production, safety?
Well, we're not going to get into those specifics today. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Given how many defendants are named in this suit, realistically, what do you hope the end goal is here? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, first and most importantly is to hold the people accountable who are responsible and to seek compensation just and fair for Matt Hutchins and his son Andros, who he lost his long-term wife, who was the love of his life, and his son has lost a mother. And when we hear all this about the celebrity and things that's involved, don't lose track of it. It is a young boy who will never have a mother, and it's a man who lost his wife, who he had a long-term great marriage with. So we need to have them be fully compensated, and we need to hold the people responsible that engage in this cost-cutting and reckless behavior causing this senseless death.
Do you hope this is able to impact the film industry moving forward?
The question was?
Do you hope that this is able to impact the film industry moving
Well,
forward?
yeah, obviously we hope it'll impact, but look, there are regulations and guidelines in place today that should prevent something like this from happening. But they need to be enforced. And had they been followed, this never would have happened. This is so rare that somebody would be shot on a scene when they're lensing it. There's no supposed to be live ammunition. It never should have happened. Never.
Was there any evidence that you found of sabotage, as has been suggested?
No, we found no evidence of that, and we know that they haven't really said anything. We haven't seen any evidence of that.
Do you have any evidence of or any information about where the live bullet came from? Do you know that?
Well, that's still being investigated. We do know there was other live ammunition on the scene, so this wasn't a fluke where somebody put one bullet in a gun to sabotage
Beyond
this.
that church scene or in other places on the set?
Other places.
Oh, wow.
The lawsuit says the gun is charged by releasing the hammer. When the expert spoke on the presentation, he made it seem like it is charged by Alec pulling the trigger. So which is it?
Well, I think it's clear what happened. Alec had the gun in his hand. He shot it. Halyna was killed. Now, do we have the video? We don't have it all yet, but the gun cannot fire unless the trigger is engaged and the hammer is back. So he had the gun. He says he pulled the hammer back. It fired. She was killed.
Can you tell us the last time that Matthew Hutchins was in contact with Alec Baldwin?
I believe the last time that they met was shortly after the incident in Santa Fe County when he was there with his son.
But there's been no ongoing communication?
There has been some, but I don't really want to get into that today.
Is it still the case that the guns were used for target practice by the crews? Is that part of your lawsuit? Was that one of the guns used? If so,
We're not getting into that information today.
Have you actually had a chance to look at the actual weapon that was used and examine it?
No, we have not. That's in the presence of the district attorney and the authorities, and at the appropriate time, we will have that opportunity.
When you examine it, what do you think you're going to be doing, or who's, pardon me?
Well, look, I'm not an armor expert. The experts will look at it and make any determinations, but we don't think that the weapon was what caused this, any defect in the weapon. The weapon was made to fire. It fired.
Clarify for us when this lawsuit was filed, please. When was the lawsuit?
Today.
In Santa Fe County?
Yes, sir.
This morning?
Yes, sir.
And what words would you use to describe the atmosphere when it concerns safety and the attitude towards safety on the set?
I think it was recklessly disregarded, to the disregard of all the people there, the safety, and that's why this happened. Had they not been reckless, somebody doesn't get shot on a movie set. I mean, when was the last time that happened? This doesn't happen unless people cut costs and engage in reckless behavior leading to a senseless, tragic death.
If this moves forward in a criminal setting with regard to Alec Baldwin, does your case pause until liability is established? How does that work?
Well, you know, that's up to the court. It's their discretion on certain how to handle it. Some parts may go forward, some may not. People may assert privileges not to testify. They have the right to do that. That's very possible that could happen with people that are involved in the criminal investigation.
Is there any more information you could give us about the quantity of damages that you're seeking that aren't mentioned in the...
Well, there's no figure listed in the complaint. The amount of damages will be substantial, but that will be assessed by the citizens in the community there in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they will weigh in and they will hear the evidence and they will decide what is fair and just compensation. But it is substantial. A long-time marriage, soulmate is lost, and a boy to be raised without a mother at a young age is a tremendous loss. And anyone that's even been close to experience it knows But that goes on forever and ever and ever.
Is there a parallel case that you're looking at there?
No, I think each case is always judged on its own facts and merits, and, you know, we'll see what the jury believes. We believe it's gonna be substantial, but it's gonna be based on the loss of that relationship and the punitive damages that may be assessed in the case also.
Can we talk about the armorer? You talk about her not being qualified in your filing. Do you have any information about any other information about her hiring, who might have been there to support her or not? Or the job?
Everything on her that we wanted to disclose now is in the complaint. Okay.
Is Baldwin the person you see as most culpable in this?
Well, there are many people culpable, but Mr. Baldwin was the person holding the weapon that, but for him shooting it, she would not have died. So clearly, he has significant portion of liability, but there are others, and that's what this case is going to be about, assessing fair apportionment to whoever's responsible for this senseless tragedy occurring.
Is there a insurance firm that is handling that particular production? Do we know if they have necessary funds to deal with such a
You know,
issue?
there are many law firms involved. We haven't got to the discovery process yet.
So we don't know if we have somebody who is insuring the entire production.
Well, then there's insurance and there's assets and other things, but that's really not discovered yet, and we're not really, you know, looking at it. We're trying to find responsibility right now and hold the people accountable.
As you said, a man lost his wife, a son lost his mother. How do you describe Matthew Hutchins' feelings and emotions about having to go to the lengths to file this lawsuit?
Well, I think Matt is grieving. He understands that a lawsuit is necessary to get answers. He wants answers. He wants closure. And people are respecting his privacy as him and his son deal with this in their own way. And I think when you meet Matt, you will see what a resilient, courageous, wonderful person he really is, and a great father, and he was a great husband to Halyna, and it's tragic that this happened to him and his son to go through this senseless. It never, ever should have happened.
Mr. Panish, you see how long it takes for cases to proceed here in California. How long do you expect this case, how long will this journey be?
Well, I'm going to let Randy answer that because she's from New Mexico, so why don't you answer?
So,
Would you introduce yourself?
I'm Randy McGinn from the law firm of McGinn on 2011 Curry in Albuquerque. We're much faster than California, and the courts in Santa Fe move cases much faster. So I think we will be in trial within 1.5 to 2 years, given, you know, always depending on what the pandemic does. And we're used to, in New Mexico, we're used to people from coming in from out of town to play cowboy who don't know how to use guns. And the jury in Santa Fe is used to that and understands that even on a dude ranch, you don't hand somebody a gun until you've given them safety training in guns, and you certainly never pointed at anybody. You always assume it's loaded. So
You equate this case to somebody coming to Santa Fe trying to play cowboy and not knowing what they're doing.
I think that happens a lot in New Mexico. People come out west and they're all excited about using a gun. And I will tell you, no one should ever die with a real gun on a make-believe movie set. That should never happen. And people in Santa Fe understand that. They're used to guns, and there are real cowboys in Santa Fe.
Yes, thank you, Randy.
Yeah.
By the way, Randy's a top lawyer in New Mexico, and it's great to work with her. I've known her for many, many years, and this is the first case that we've had the privilege of working together on. I'm looking forward to working with her and a great firm in New Mexico. So, yes.
Of course, many other lawsuits have been filed in connection with Lynn's death. What do you think of the suit that the armorer has filed against the ammunition supplier, accusing him of mixing the dummy?
Well, first of all, we're concerned with this lawsuit, and this is what we're focused on. We've read all those, consider the information, but we're not running down those rabbit holes. We're going straight ahead with this lawsuit for this family against these defendants.
And if this goes to trial, give us a sense of how many witnesses you would expect, how long?
Well, I mean, this, you know, as Randy says, things go faster in New Mexico, but I would expect this case to last for up to a month. There's many, many witnesses, experts, so we'll see. You know, the judge may want to move it faster, and they move faster in New Mexico, as Randy says. So we're hoping
to get this going as fast as possible. Obviously, the court and the pandemic are going to be other factors that are have to come into play, but I think we're very optimistic that the best place for this case to be is in Santa Fe, where this happened, and those people, those members of that community will assess the conduct and find who's accountable and what's a fair and just compensation for the family.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very, very much for coming. Have a great day. Stay out of the rain.
Can we get a shot of the three?
Yeah, sure.
You've got the bigger arms.
Can you guys look this way also?
Thank you all. So,
For those who still need, I have thumb drives of the presentation if you need it, and hard copies of the complaint. I'm right over here. If you need it, just stop on by before you leave. Otherwise, drop-off sleeves have been sent to your stations.
Thank you, Angela.